But I know a lot of people watching will be new to the world of running, and I'm just wondering what philosophy would you suggest people adopt if they're starting out in running? If they're a jogger, they're aspiring to run 5K, maybe run park run or some other sort of short distance race, and maybe 10Ks or half marathons eventually. What is a good philosophy to adopt when you're beginning out on a running career?
Well, running doesn't have the greatest reputation when you're young, because if you're late for a soccer game or basketball game or anything, give me a lap, give me a lap, it's kind of punishment and give me a push-up. So we want to change that, because and the other thing is that when runners see us, we might be sprinting, but we're not sprinting the whole way all out. So it's not a full out, get out the door and sprint. You have to enjoy it. You have to embrace it. Even if you have to walk, it's okay. Walk for a half mile, run for a half mile, and then walk back. And it's okay, slowly but surely. Next week or 2 weeks later, you're going to be able to just run a mile or 2 miles. So that's an increase. You can see the progress changing in your body. And that's the beautiful thing about running. Your own pace. It depends where age you start or what gender you are. You are you. That's your DNA. And you keep improving on that. It would be a wonderful accomplishment, whether you run 5K, 10K to the half marathon. And hopefully, I always recommend everybody should do 1 marathon in their lifetime. And then if you love it and you like it, you want to challenge yourself, keep doing it. If not, you can do the shorter races.
I mean, they do describe the marathon in people's lives as the Everest of sport. It's kind of like Mount Everest. It's the toughest challenge there is. I guess 5K and 10K are a little bit more manageable. I mean, you kind of went through the gears because you've run 3:42 for 1,500, which is worth about 3:59 for a mile. You've run world class 3,000, 5,000, 10,000. So you went through the gears.
Absolutely. For me, it was the miler, and then eventually a 2-miler, and then 5K, and then eventually the 5K in collegiately, and then 10K in the collegiate, and then after that, it was 2002 when I did 27-year-old when I did my first marathon. So I went through the process of stepping stones. You want to be the fastest you can at the younger age, and then eventually move to the marathon. And I didn't like my first marathon when I first did it in 2002. In fact, I hated it because it was such cold weather in New York, and the shades of the buildings never got warm. But you have to be adaptable. You have to understand where your background is. When I went back to Eritrea after my first marathon, literally 2 weeks later with my mom, I said, what, I have no room to complain. And when I saw people how they have to survive to work from sunrise to sunset, we don't take things for granted. So I came home today and I stayed driven to say, hey, I want to be able to try to do Boston, but push Bob Larson. And talked me out of Boston because New York and Boston were very similar courses. So let's do it on flat course, see Chicago to kind of see the idea of how comfortable you can be going for time. And I ran 2.5 minutes faster. And then I'm like, oh, this could be good. And then fell in love with it again. But the first one was not very pretty.
That's interesting because so often that is the case. People sometimes say, oh, your first marathon experience has got to be a good one, otherwise it can kind of scar you. But you're saying, no, that's not true. You just have to sort of build your resources up again and have another shot.
Absolutely. For me, the first one, I learned my PhD. I knew not to throw my beanie away, my gloves away, my hand warmers, and also sleeves, or just, those are the things that if I had a home run the first time, it's like, okay, I did good, but then you might feel comfortable. But then it's like, I got to be a student of the sport to learn a little bit more about it, and pacing and being patient and all those things. So I'm not happy that I finished that way, but I could definitely learn a lot from my mistakes.
That's the sharp end of the sport we're talking about. That was when you were becoming a world-class performer. But while we're talking about joggers who you're saying should do little and often, maybe jog and walk. It's very, very slow, humble beginnings is where we all came from when we started our running careers. But going back to something perhaps as fundamental as, when somebody understands they've got to go for a jog 3 or 4 days a week just to get started, something as fundamental as diet, for example. What did you do for your food? Did you have a very specific sort of schedule you would follow on the day of a race when you were running a 5K or a 10K on the track, or maybe a half marathon on the road? Was it different for a half marathon and a marathon? Tell us about your diet on the day of a race.
Diet is very important, but if you grow up like I did, or growing up poor, every time I see food, I was going to grab it for as much as I can. And in fact, I was at 97 with the transforming moment for me, because the exercise physiology professor said when I was at UCLA, said, write everything that you eat and then let me know how much exercise that you guys are doing as a class. And he was mesmerized when he saw like 6,500 calories on my daily intake.
6,500, 6,500, and most
6,000.
adults need about 2,000, don't they?
Well, I was 23 years old, 22-year-old. I was eating everything and anything, and he said, "You lucky run, you lucky got genetics. Otherwise, you'll be obese." So I said, "What should?" I'm not saying don't have one meal, just have pasta and not pizza or lasagna, instead of all three of them at the same time, and then have lunch, turkey sandwich or something, and a banana. So instead of coming back from classes to have lunch, I would take my lunch with me and then change it everything. So nutrition is very important. And for me, my go-to was spaghetti with meatball, red sauce. If I can have it the night before my race, I know I'm ready to go.
So if people are running 3 or 4 days a week, say, and they get their diet pretty much dialed in and they're good with that, what else would you recommend as a way of sleeping patterns, relaxation? I know most people have got to go to work or go to school and have a busy day, but what, for example, would be your optimal recommendation for sleep and then relaxation?
For sleep is the normal. If you get like 7-8 hours, for me, if I get 6 hours, I'm good to go. I'm not a napper. I was not a napper. If I had to take a nap, then I would be up all night long. So, till probably late in my professional career is when I had kids, start taking a nap. But before that, I just get 6 to 8 hours, and I'm good with that. And then obviously, just stretching is important. Between hours, you have to stretch a little bit, even though you might not have the time, but 2 to 3 minutes. Achilles, calves, quads.
Before or after a run?
Both. So if you're gonna run, let's say 5 miles, you rather 4 miles and use that. If you take 8-minute pace or 10-minute pace per mile, use 4 minutes before and 4 minutes after. You'd rather have just healthy, consistent training for a longer period than try to get that 1 more mile in today and then shower and then go and chances of getting injured. So stretching that's one of the reasons why I think I had a longer career, because I emphasize on stretching and core and also just soft surfaces. Very systematically what I put my mileage in, because I avoid injuries and not going up. If I'm doing hill repeats or intervals, the next day if I have to do half a mile or mile moves like 7, 8, 10 times, I'll do that. That's discipline. And then when you go on a race to unfold on the straightaway or 26 miles, you unleash to the best you can. So yeah, I think icing also is important if you can when you are work or when you are at home watching, if your knee sore or calf is sore, you do a little bit. I always believe in prehab instead of rehab. You don't want to give away they have to rehab. If you can avoid it beforehand, try to do that as much as you can.
That's really interesting. You're saying if folk have got, say, an hour in the middle of the day or the evening in which to get a run done, don't run as many miles as you can squeeze into that hour. Sacrifice some of that time in which you could be running to stretching and just a little bit of attention to your body that is non-running. And actually, this is great advice, Meb, because of course you are renowned for your longevity, and I'm thinking because you raced so well for so many years consistently, you didn't have many major injuries. So this is kind of one of the secrets of your trade that made you successful year after year after year.
I did the drills, and I had injuries, but you also have to understand why did you get those injuries, and don't be in a rush to get surgery and things like that. If it's something that you can rehab by just resting, you have to do that. My pelvic stress fracture from 2007 November till 2009, I had to take a year and a half of therapy. But I didn't have surgery, but that allowed me to come back stronger, because fundamentally just give it the basic. Our body heals really naturally, and then I had ruptured quads. Whether that one, I have to the world championships. Sometimes you have to drop out. You don't want to drop out, but I have to, because I can feel the tear in my body. When you're so fine-tuned to your body, you can definitely know what's going on. So you rather just there's no time I'm running, but you can make a time out if it's going to become a serious injury, because you don't want to completely tear it.